Mitzvah should bring another mitzvah. We should continue to do mitzvahs. Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Boker Tov, Boker Or. We're going to learn a beautiful concept, a sikh of the Rebbe, on the Parsha, on a Rashi. We're going to learn a beautiful Rashi. And we're going to learn how the Rebbe looks at this Rashi and how the Rebbe looks at this verse of the Torah. Today, the Yom Yom, day to day, it says that the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, said the following statement. The Yom Yom is a book that was written by the Rebbe that says every day something nice, something spiritual, something Hasidic on for the day. So he writes over here, today's day, he writes, the Alter Rebbe once said the commentary of Rashi on Chumash, the Alter Rebbe, the Tanya, Chabad, he writes the commentary of Rashi on Chumash is like the wine of Torah. It unlocks the heart and reveals one essential love and fear of God. That is Rashi on Chumash. That is what the Rashi does for us when we learn Chumash and Rashi. This class starts on page 81 in your book. And we go to the rules of Rashi. Hopefully you're getting all these rules down. And so that you will look at Rashi different when you learn the next Rashi yourself. Number one, Rashi always apps to the simplest explanation. We always say this every week. Okay? Rashi always wants to go. He's not a book of a medrash. He's not a book of deep study. He always goes to the simpler, how to look at the pasuk in the most simplest way, because he learns it to the 5-year-old. Again, you got to mention the 5-year-old. The 5-year-old wants, as the Rebbe said, remember many months ago, he said, the 5-year-old is not interested in speeches. He wants a quick question, a quick answer. He's not interested in telling him whole drushes. He's thinking about when he's recess. So the 5-year-old wants to know the simple answer. Give him the simple answer. He has a simple question. Give him the simple answer. And that's what Rashi does. Rashi said he does that. It's not the... Rashi said, I come to give the 5-year-old a simple answer to the question that he has in the verse. Number two, Rashi assumes that you remember his earlier commentary. Rashi assumes that you're a good student, you're a good 5-year-old, and when he said something before, you remember it. If you don't remember it, that means you didn't review your studies. So if you reviewed, you remember what he said before. He's not repeating things that he said before. He won't. He doesn't expect you to know the future, but he expects you. Every child should know from Bereshis till this Parsha Trumah. He should know he should know the learning already. He's been learning with him from the Bereshis till the middle of Exodus. Number three, Rashi only cites his source. Usually Rashi doesn't cite sources. Even though a lot of Rashi is Gemara, a lot of Rashi is Medrash. Like this Rashi, we can see Medrash Tanchuma. This is a Medrash, Tanchuma Medrash, and Rashi usually doesn't cite it unless it's also to explain the simple meaning of the verse. That means the 5-year-old is not interested in where you got it from, right? He wants to know the answer. An adult is interested in where you get it from, what's their source, let's go look up the source. That's not that the child is interested. The child is interested in the answer. He doesn't need to have the source. He wants the answer. You only give the source if it gives him the simple answer. Okay? Now let's learn the pasuk. We're going to learn the Torah. Okay? Page 82, text number 1. If you don't have a book, look in the Chumash on Exodus chapter 25, verse 3 to verse 5. Idaber Hashem al Moshe Leiman, God told to Moshe, says me, Dabar b'nei Yisrael, speak to the Jewish people, v'yikchu li Trumah. Speak to the Jewish people, they should take from me an offering. Trumah. Eis kol isha she'edvena libui, tikru es tumasi. From all those who are the generous of heart, you shall take my offering. Verse number 3, V'zeisa Trumah, asher tiknu me'ita. And this is what you take, 13 different things. Zahav, gold, kesef, silver, nechoshes, copper. Verse 4, Tchelas Agamon. Take the blue, purple, crimson wool. I'm sorry. There's a got shani and linen, shesh and izim and goat's hair. And then verse number 5, ram skins of dyed red, tchoshim skins, and the last thing in the verse is atzei shittim and acacia wood. Okay, 13 different articles in the pasuk that needs to be to the building of this Mishkan. Comes Rashi, out of all the 13 things, 15 things, as Rashi actually says is 15, but the verse is 13, but that's a separate issue. Atzei shittim, Rashi goes in the last words of this 5 verses, and the verse Atzei shittim, acacia wood. And Rashi says in text number 1b, acacia wood, where did they get these trees in the desert? Right? Where did they get these trees in the desert? They're in a desert. You're talking about over 50 trees, right? Over 50 trees, right? Because this, we know that these most of them were used for the planks of the Mishkan. Each one was 10 amas, like 15 feet tall, and one amma, a foot and a half for its width. There was over 50, 60 boards of these, 20, 50, there was 50 boards of it, and it must have been over 60, 70 trees. I don't know, 60 to 70. I can go and look it up. Go and figure it out, because you have other, besides the trees, besides the boards, the crushim, these poles that put together the whole thing. There was everything was made out of wood. The table, besides the menorah, table, the mizbeach hazav, the silver altar, the aron had wood in it, the box of wood. A lot of other woods. The poles were out of wood. A lot of other things that was wood, they're covered with gold, but a lot of trees. There's a lot of trees. 50, 60, 70, 80, I don't know. Doesn't not that I've ever seen the number was brought down, how many trees. So Rashi says, where did they have the trees? Rav Tanchuma explains. Rav Tanchuma is Medrash Tanchuma. He was the one who wrote that Medrash, Tanchuma. It was Rabbi Tanchuma. So there's a Medrash, there's a book called Medrash Tanchuma, which is there's a different Medrashim. There's Medrash Rabbah, Medrash Tanchuma, Medrash Sifra. There's many different Medrashim. This is called Medrash Tanchuma, written by Rabbi Tanchuma, was one of the sages in the times of the Tanoim. He explains that our father Jacob foresaw prophetically that the Jews would build a tabernacle in the desert. So he brought trees to Egypt and planted them. So Yaakov Avinu schlepped 60, 70, 80 trees. When he came down to Egypt, right? He came down to see his son Joseph, to move to Egypt from Israel. He schlepped 60, I don't know, says he schlepped trees. He brought trees. No, this is the Medrash. Yeah, it's a Medrash. It's a Medrash. It's a Medrash of the Chumah. It's a Medrash. We're not going to explain Medrash. It's a Medrash. A Medrash is the homiletic teachings of the Torah. It's a Medrash. You have hundreds and thousands of Medrashim. The rest of the story, the Medrash.
Part of the oral story.
Right, it's a Medrash.
Story.
It's a Medrash. Whatever, take it or leave it. It's a Medrash. A medrash. That's the question. Why would Rashi come to this medrash? Why would Rashi say this medrash? This is like a story that it doesn't say anywhere in the Torah this story, and it's an amazing story. It's truly an amazing story. Yaakov Avinu, in his unbelievable prophetic vision, saw the Jewish people were going to need to build a tabernacle hundreds of years later, and he schlepped 60, 70 trees from Israel. He schlepped them to Mitzrayim. Why didn't he take seeds to Mitzrayim? No, he schlepped trees to Mitzrayim. Okay, why did he schlep the seeds? Why didn't he just go to Egypt and plant seeds in Egypt? He knew it's not going to happen in 10 years. So, actually prophesies it'll do. It's going to take 210 years. So he knew it's going to be a long time. He could have bought seeds in Egypt. He could have planted trees in Egypt. No, he schleps trees from Israel. So that's like you imagine the Jewish people schlepping trees from Egypt out into the desert. He's schlepping. And how did he schlep these trees? So that's the Agolis. Yaakov Avinu, right? Says Joseph sends the Agolis. He sends wagons. So he sends wagons. Yaakov Avinu thinks to himself, why is he sending me all these wagons? I don't have my own wagons. I need Yosef to give me wagons. So he realized these wagons. I'm using these wagons. Piles up these wagons with trees, pulls them out of the ground in Israel, piles them up on these wagons, brings them to Mitzrayim, plants them in Egypt, replants them in Egypt. He doesn't bring them planks. He brings them trees that could be planted in Egypt. I don't know how tall the trees were. I don't know exactly. It doesn't say were they already 10 feet tall, were they already only 5 feet, were they saplings? I don't know. There were trees. I don't know if you have it. That's considered a tree. That's a shrub. It was a tree, acacia wood tree. I'm not sure how tall it was. But he schleps trees there and plants them. He instructs his children and he tells them, listen, Emir Hashem, you're taking these trees with you when you leave Egypt. Okay? So when you leave Egypt and you're going to be in a rush and you're not going to have time to make food, but make sure to take the trees. Don't leave the trees. Okay? Cut down these trees and schlep it with you in the desert. Now, these trees, once they leave Egypt, is already over 15 feet tall. That's for sure. We know these trees are tall trees because they have to be at least 15, 20 feet tall. Because the Mishkan was 15 feet tall. So we know that they had to be bigger than that. So
if they're 15 feet, we can safely assume that they brought saplings over and planted because these are trees already, right? You know what I'm saying?
No, why couldn't they be mature trees, already 10, 15 feet, and just planted them there? I don't know. Again, we can argue something. Maybe it says, I don't know. I can't tell you that answer, how big the tree was when Yaakov Avinu brought it. I know it says clearly they brought trees. I don't know if a sapling is a tree. Whatever. It doesn't make a difference to me that. Because what's important to me is that he brought trees. That's the Medrash says. He brought trees, and these trees were with the Jews in the desert in Egypt for the 210 years of the slavery, and they took it with them. That's how Rashi learns the verse. Now, why would Rashi do that? That's the question. The second, why would Rashi do that? Why would Rashi bring this medrash? Why would Rashi bring the medrash? And the bigger question is, because there's much more simpler answers to this problem. It's a good question. Where in the world did they get trees? It's a good question. The question's a good question. There's much more of a very simple answer to this question. Where they got trees? Because the question really is, where they got a lot of things in this desert? Where they get? Okay, maybe they took it with them from Egypt. They got dye. Where did they get the olive oil for the thing? Olives. I can ask a lot of questions. Where did they get in the desert? Because you had to have a lot of olives. Because it was you're making you're lighting this menorah on a regular day, every day for 40 years. You had to get olives somewhere. Or maybe they took it from Egypt. Doesn't say that Yaakov Avinu planted olive trees. and told them, take all these olives with you. He doesn't say that. It says, out of all the 15, 13 things in this verse, Rashi's worried about these acacia trees. Rashi's worried about everybody's worried about the acacia trees, really. And Rashi comes up with a medrash. Rashi comes up to the 5-year-old child and answers him an unbelievable story. An unbelievable story. That Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, had to bring these trees before, and he planted them, and this is how they had these trees. When you can go to a simple answer, there's a very simple answer to this question.
Is that tree native to the Middle East?
No, it's not. No, it's in Israel. These trees are in Israel. It's a cedar. It's in Israel. These are trees from Israel. He specifically wanted trees from Israel. That's for sure. Because he could have planted Egyptian trees. I don't know. I'm sure there's other trees that give out good wood. Yaakov Avinu wanted trees from Israel. That is seemingly the Medrash is telling us. Yaakov wanted trees from Israel. And the question is, really, why does Rashi want to go with that Medrash? That's really the question. Why does Rashi want to go with that Medrash? When we have a very simple answer. And you look at text number 2, the Ebenezer, another commentator on Chumash, brings a simple answer to this question. What's a simple answer? Text number 2. You had a question?
Did they bring lumber, or they actually brought
trees
and planted the tree?
Who?
Does it say when they let
Yaakov or the Jews?
Out of Egypt?
No, they just took the trees. They took the trees, the actual trees. I don't know. No, they didn't plant it. It was in a desert. There's nothing to plant. No, they didn't. They took the trees. They didn't know what's going to be. We didn't know how we're going to cut it. Then you ruined the point. Imagine they cut it into 4 feet each. Then your whole thing is ruined. I told you the Mishkan is 50, at least 15 feet tall. So they couldn't cut the trees. They had to leave the tree. I'm sure they took the branches off. Maybe it would be hard to stop branches. I don't know. The trees, they took the trees a whole. They must have taken the trees that were at least 20 feet tall. It must be. Question how much is an amma? That's where the truth is. According to some, an amma is 24 inches. Then that means the Mishkan was 24 feet tall. So now these trees had to be over 25 feet, 30 feet. If you say an amma is 24 inches. There's an argument with how much an amma is between 15 inches and 24 inches. So there's an argument in that. We're not sure what an amma is, but we know that the Torah says that the Mishkan was 10 ammas. Yeah, we're not talking about it. We're talking about after they cut him. They cut him now and they brought him to the desert. I'm not saying how tall I don't know how tall Jacob brought it. I'm not sure, but I know for sure that when they left Egypt, it must have been 25, 30, or maybe 40 feet tall trees. Yeah, I'm not with you. I'm not arguing. I'm not talking. I'm talking about they left Egypt. I'm not talking when they went to Egypt. I'm not sure how tall the trees were. It says he took trees. I don't know what that means. So he says. Some of our predecessors explain that it's Rashi, that the patriarch Jacob planted them, and the Israelites brought them out of Egypt as Moshe Rabbeinu's instruction. Now, we don't know if this was transmitted to our predecessors by their ancestors. We too should expect it. However, the best to seek a different explanation if they were merely their theory. So, evidence says it's a beautiful medrash. Okay, it's a medrash, and but let's go to the simple. Let's go to the basic pasuk. We suggest that there's an acacia grove near the Sinai desert. When they arrived at Sinai, Moshe informed them that they would pause there for a long time. At that point, they cut down trees. You have to realize, we think that when the Jewish people went through the desert, they went through like the Sahara Desert. There were many oases. They went through. They were not far from inhabited places. The furthest was a day travel to the closest inhabited place. You have to realize that from Egypt to Israel was an 11-day official walk, 11-day journey. That was the amount that it takes to go from Israel to Egypt. Really, it took them 40 years. 11 days could do. Don't want to take any. Don't want to take any. What do you call it? No, the device how to go. They didn't have ways, and God took them to the desert. Whatever, but there was. It's a fact at that point. So therefore, the Ebenezer says it could be that in a distance to them there was a forest, there were trees, and actually they built huts. They knew that they're going to be here Moshe Rabbeinu said, and I actually were there for over 2 years. They knew they're going to be here for a couple of years, so they started building themselves homes. Went and cut trees, built themselves huts. They built themselves a Beis HaMedrash. They built themselves a place where Moshe Rabbeinu sat as a study hall. Must have been a built building. And the leaders to build a large courtyards. Moshe instructed them to build the tabernacle after Yom Kippur, several months after they built their own huts. By then, there was plenty of available wood. Right? It's brought down in other places that people would come and do business with them. Other countries, other people would come to imagine you're a businessman and there's 1 million, 2 million people a mile away from you in the desert. Lots of money. You're going to go there and sell them things. That's it. And that's it. So that's where they got all the olives and all the things. And they got this. That's logical. And we know that they weren't far away from societies or right. They had wars. Amalek came, and there was not such a distance between them and other societies that they lived in.
All about tribal communities.
Tribal communities, countries, peoples. They were not so far. Again, I told you that it takes 11 days to go from this. They were not such a distance from other societies and places. And therefore they struggled ultimately with other. Amalek came to attack them. Well, he didn't come from the 500 miles away. They came for a day or 2 or 3 distance away. And you see that in the Torah it says, you have in the book itself, and they arrived in Elim, and there were 12 springs of water and 70 date palms. They were not in the Sahara Desert. They were in a desert, but there was oases. They suddenly bumped into a place that had 70 spring waters and 70 trees of dates. There must have been suddenly not a desert. Suddenly they bumped into a place where there was water and there was everything there. So we know that it was easily, according to the Ebenezer, it was easily to find. They found trees. They were not far away.
Did that represent the 70 souls that came down?
That's a separate issue. Separate issue.
Okay.
Not concerning. Over here, we're just trying to prove that even in the desert itself, there was not again a desert that didn't have oases of life, of life. If there were springs of water there, there must have been people there, and there was trees that growing there. So we know that the Ebenezer says, we know in the Torah that there was not far from them in their journey oases of trees, water, humans, etc. And therefore the Gemara, it says in text number 3b, there were items that merchants from communities of nations would sell to them. That's it. Everybody knew the Jewish people were traveling. There was millions of people traveling. It's good business. And they came to them and they sold to them and they bought from them. So what's the big deal? Why does Rashi have to go to a medrash? He has to go to a medrash, which is a phenomenal medrash. Great story. Phenomenal medrash that Yaakov Avinu planted trees from Israel planted them in Egypt, and the Jewish people schlepped these trees with them. That's even the bigger, unbelievable thing, that the Jewish people, they're running out of Egypt, they're schlepping with them 60, 70, 40 feet trees. Amazing story. Amazing medrash. Why would Rashi do that? Why would Rashi do that?
Well, the wood must have a good significance to go,
The Mishkan was made out of wood. This Mishkan was made out of wood. This tabernacle was made out of wood. It was covered with gold, but it was all wood. There was these walls that was 30 feet in the length and 10 feet in the width were all wood. So you had over a lot of wood. And almost all the utensils were made out of wood, covered with gold. Everything was covered with gold, if you listen to the Torah this week, but it was all wood.
Very simple.
Right? So why did Rashi go to the Medrash? That's the question. So why did Rashi do that? If Rashi always go to the simple meaning of the verse, why would Rashi have to go to a Medrash, a story that most of the people here are asking the questions like, well, like what is going on over here? Like how does that happen? How did it happen? Why would Rashi do that? So there must be a reason that Rashi wants that the 5-year-old child should not go to the simple, like the Evan Ezer. Basically, they bumped into a forest and they had enough trees. They sent out a message maybe to another community saying we're looking for 50 trees. Who wants to deliver us 50 trees at a good price? And it was not a problem. They were brought 50 trees. That would be the simple answer. Just like you would ask, I understand how they had gold and silver and diamonds, because it was told they brought it out of Egypt. And how they had all this wool, maybe they brought it out of Egypt. How did they have all this incense? All this incense is all this incense. How did they have all this olive oil? I mean, maybe they took some olive oil over there. Over here, you had to take out buckets of olives out to the desert. You can say a simple answer.
And how did they get more?
Yeah, how did they get more?
This is a long time.
Correct.
It's not a shelf life.
Correct.
Amazon.
So to answer this question, and really is that we want to come out not just to answer the question, we want to really understand what Rashi wants to tell us. What Rashi wants to tell this 5-year-old child. So the Rebbe says, you have to go in a way to the beginning of the Parsha, and to understand the beginning of the Parsha. Right? The Eibishter says, this is on page 86. You have the verse there, Exodus 25, verse number 2. Daber al bnei Yisrael, speak to the Jewish people, v'yikchu li Trumah. Imagine, it's like out of the blue, right? We come from Parsha Mishpatim, Parsha of Law. Suddenly, God turns to the Jewish people and says, take a Trumah. Turn to the Jewish people, command them to take a Trumah, to separate from them, so they have all this product, they have all these products, right? They came out of Egypt, they're loaded with all this product. Moshe Rabbeinu turns to the Jewish people and says, right now, the Eibishter says, separate something from everything that you have. Separate 13 or 14, 15, 13, 15 different items that I want you to separate. Right now. Right? It doesn't say, go get it. It says, v'yichud, right now, v'yichuli, take me right now, a separation. Separate me for right now. That means when I tell you to separate me something, and Rashi says, Trumah, what means the word Trumah? You're saying is 4b, hafrasha. And Rashi says, don't go out. Trumah doesn't mean don't go out and buy something. Trumah means separate, right now. You can't separate if you don't have the thing right now. So you have to have the thing. So in essence, the Torah, in essence, tells the Jew, I want you to separate from what you have right now. right? That's how you learn. That's how Rashi learns it. Rashi's Trumah is Afrasha, text number 4b, as an offering, a separation. They set apart of the property and offering for me. So if you take the simple meaning of the verse, if the 5-year-old child is doing the verse, it says, separate for me right now. So he knows why you can separate gold, silver, Turkish wool. He knows why you can separate right now, because the Jewish people had it. He knows the Jewish people had it, right? God says to the Jewish people, take clothes, take everything, take clothes, take gold, take jewelry. It says at the crossing of the sea, they gathered even more gold and more jewelry and more diamonds and more precious objects. So they all have it. Right? There's another measure that said every Jew had 90 donkeys of laden with the gold, whatever. Not a medrash. Not important over here. But we know they had it. And God says, suddenly, take it. Separate right now. So the Ben Chamish Lamikra, the 5-year-old child, knows that they had it. Whatever God asked them was not that God asked them to go get it. God asked them what they had. What they had. He didn't ask them for something they didn't have. They would have to go get, acquire. They would have to search for. Everything that God asked them, they had. So that's why the Melchamash Mikra right away asked the question, how did they have all these boards? You can't go to the Ebenezer, to that rabbi, because that would have to go get. You'd have to go get it. Go to the nations of the world, go find a forest a mile away from you or 2 miles away from you, go search for it, you'll find it. As we know, they could have found it. But no, the child knows, he's already read in the Parsha that God says, V'yichchu, take it out right now. Take what you have. Separate what you have. So therefore, the Ben Chamish Mikra is questioned, how in the world do they have right now 60 boards of acacia wood? How in the world do they have it right now? I know we can get it, but how do they have it right now? And therefore, Rashi has to go away from the simple meaning. Rashi cannot go to the simple meaning that, oh, there's capability to get. We know that. There's capability to find, it's capability to buy. Rashi doesn't want to go that way, because you go to the simple verse. The verse says, V'yichol, take these things. Don't go get these things, take it. So they had to have it. So how do they have it? How in the world did they have it?
Pre-planning.
That was Yaakov's pre-planning. So that was the pre-planning. So therefore Rashi goes, we're not finished yet. It's going to get a little more complicated. Rashi goes away from the simple interpretation. Rashi is forced, in essence, to go away from the simple interpretation and go to the Medrash. That, you know what? How do they have it right then and there? They're traveling in the desert. They're coming out of Egypt. How in the world can God say right then and there, take acacia wood? Because they had it. They were schlepping. They were dragging with them for whatever reason, I'm going to bring the Medrash that Yaakov Avinu told them to schlep these trees. And since even though Yaakov Avinu passed away over 200 years ago, but they remembered Jacob, and Moses told them about Jacob's wishes, so they schlepped these trees with them. Right? They didn't have time for the bread to leaven, but they schlepped these trees. So they must have cut it off the day before already. They had it on the wagons, these 60, 70 trees, over 15, 20, 30 feet, and it's going with them. It's traveling with them. Because if not, how does God say, take right now? You can't take. I don't have it. I don't have to take. I don't have it. So therefore, Rashi says, Rashi knew acacia trees were not native in Egypt. He therefore insists Jacob planted them. So therefore, Rashi had to use the Medrash. He had no choice. And he comes to the Medrash. Right? But you still have a question.
part wasn't in the movie.
You still have a question. It's a Rashi. You still have a question. Why did Rashi? Okay, so we know why they had to have the trees with them. Okay, great. But why did Yaakov Avinu have to schlep from Israel the trees? Why do we have to go to the Medrash to tell us that Yaakov Avinu schlepped? Why did we tell us the whole story? Yaakov Avinu saw in prophecy that they would need these trees. Yaakov Avinu could have seen in prophecy need the trees, and then go to Egypt, plant the trees in Egypt. So now he wanted it for an Eretz. Okay, he wanted it for an Eretz. So that was his.
You're gonna build a tabernacle.
He wanted holy trees. Why couldn't he take saplings? Why couldn't he take seeds? Why couldn't he take seeds? Could have taken seeds of Eretz Yisrael and planted it in Egypt. And you would have, he knew that this prophecy is not happening in 2 weeks. Might take many years. As I said, he already knew it's going to take at least 200 years. So take some seeds. Imagine schlepping an El to the Yid. He's over 100 years old. He has to schlep trees over to the land of Egypt. He does take some seeds from the land of Egypt, plant it in Egypt, and you'll have it. Why does Rashi want to bring this medrash again to tell us no? The Yaakov Avinu wanted to schlep trees.
Opposed to other types of trees?
I don't know. Good question. I don't know.
Cedar is a durable wood.
I don't know. I have no idea. It's a good question. Why did God want an acacia? Really, the question is, why did the Eibishter want an acacia? A good question. I think it's brought down that acacia wood,
Cedar is very strong.
it's very strong wood, so it's not bending. I think it's brought down. But I'm sure maybe there were other, but acacia wood was more of a stronger wood.
It's very famous that it's very strong.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
was it acacia wood? I don't know. I'm not a.
It's very, very.
Oh, yeah.
famous.
Okay, so therefore, Rab Chaim Lowy, yeah,
Did that,
yeah.
maybe I'm just inventing. If you would take seeds, people wouldn't know that these seeds come from Israel, stuff like that. But if you take trees and the whole world sees that those trees from Israel, then it's from Israel.
Yeah, but 210 years later, how does anybody know they were from Israel? I mean, you're talking about hundreds of years later. We're not talking about 10 years later. We're talking about 200 years later. And the truth is, as you're going to come to, I believe, as you're going to come to the end of this Tzisicha, you're going to realize that they were not saplings. These were trees. As those come, you'll see how the Rebbe learns it. So there must have been trees. Not that they were little saplings. There must have been a good sized tree. I don't know if they were 30 feet, but they were a sized tree. As you'll see how the Rebbe learns this important lesson.
Rabbi, the fact that you can go into the redwoods out west and see trees that are 200 years old and they're huge. They're very
Right.
wide. They're very tall. These trees did not get taller, did not get wider. They stayed like they were in Israel. Apparently, otherwise, how would they be able to carry them? Think about it, right?
Again, because those are so that's I said that
That's the miracle.
sent these agolas, sent him these wagons. So
Yep.
he understood that Yosef sent these wagons because what does he need wagons? He
But the
needed-
trees did not grow any bigger than they were. That's
I
the
don't know.
point. 200 years later, they would have been wide and tall, like the trees in the redwoods. But that's not what happened. Does
No,
anybody
this
bring that
redwood,
out?
this is the cedar trees.
Right, exactly. They were cedar trees that did not really get that
The
much
cedar
bigger and
tree is
wide after
resistant to
200
moisture.
years.
To incestation.
A few other things.
So it's a good tree. But let's go on. You'll see where the Rebbe is going here. So Yaakov wanted acacia trees to come from the Holy Land. Okay, so that's why he wanted that. He replanted them in Egypt because the trees Yaakov brought would not have lasted all those years in Egypt if he did not plant them. So Yaakov, really could have cut the trees turn them into lumber, and bring the lumber to the land of Egypt. But he didn't do that. He wanted that the tree would be planted in the land of Egypt. He wanted that this was capable to take out a tree from Israel, replant it in Mitzrayim, and therefore he specifically took these kind of trees that he can replant in Mitzrayim, in Egypt.
Looks like rapid growth.
Oh, it has rapid growth? Oh, very good. Okay, very good. How tall did they grow? Does it say?
With mix in oil to keep it, from moisture.
Wow.
And,
Okay. So,
and there's a lot of qualities that would be conducive for what their needs are. So
okay, very good.
Somebody knew something.
Very good. Very good. But Rashi, the Rebbe says Rashi wants to even go a step further. Rashi doesn't only want to tell you that Yaakov Avinu wanted that he would take the truth in Israel because he wanted that, as you said before, that you're going to build a Mishkan. Why would you build the trees? Why would you build it from trees of Egypt? Build it from trees of Israel. So he specifically wanted that the trees that will build in Beis Hamikdash will be trees from Israel. So therefore, he took these trees. He didn't turn them into lumber. He kept them as trees. He replanted them when he came to Egypt. Again, all this is a medrash. It's not written in the Torah. It's all a medrash. Okay? You should just remember that. So Yaakov Avinu took all these trees, brought them to the land of Israel, planted them in the land of Israel, so that when the Jewish people went out of Mitzrayim, they would plant these, they would use these trees. This lumber, they would turn it into lumber then. This lumber would be for this room. Rashi wants to even go a step further. And in which way does Rashi go a step further? By naming the guy who said this, Rab Tanchuma, by giving us the name. Rashi says the name. It's not always that Rashi says a name. Because again, the child doesn't need the name. Child needs the answer. Why does Rashi say Rab Tanchuma? Why does he say that? Not only does he say that it's a medrash Tanchuma, he says the guy who said it, Rab Tanchuma. The Rashi, in the beginning of Rashi. Pirush Rabbi Tanchuma, on page number 83. Pirush Rabbi Tanchuma. That's unusual for Rashi to do. That he says, who? Usually, if he'll put at the end, he'll write Tanchuma. Or sometimes in brackets, he'll say Tanchuma. But over here, he actually says, Pirush Rabbi Tanchuma. Why does Rashi do that? He was the one who wrote Medrash Tanchuma. It's a Medrash called Medrash Tanchuma. The Medrash of this great sage, Rabbi Tanchuma. 83. 83, 83.
No, here, I'll show you.
Text number 1b. Yeah? So here goes the Rebbe and Imamish. Here goes the Rebbe, and he gives us such a beautiful reason why Rashi writes Rabbi Tanchuma, because he wants to give you the reason to the whole background of the story. And he says as follows, text number 7a, and this is the Rebbe's own words. When the children of Israel were in exile in Egypt, in a state of such horrific distress that the Egyptian cast the newborn into the sun in the river, they draw comfort. Tanchuma is comfort and consolation from seeing the acacia trees that Yaakov brought and planted in Egypt. So Yaakov Avinu didn't only bring the trees for the Beis Hamikdash. Yaakov Avinu brought the trees so that they would be able to survive the Galus. So he brought these trees, he planted in Egypt. This was even more comforting than God's promise, I will bring them up to Israel and I will bring you up. Because they couldn't even listen to that message. But here they saw trees and they were brought up with these trees. Right? So they couldn't have been saplings. There must have been trees already. Yaakov Avinu brought trees. Imagine the Jewish people saying, this family, why are you schlepping these trees? He says, I'm telling you, let's plant these 80 trees or whatever these trees are in Goshen. We're going to plant these 80 trees. And you're going to see these trees. Remind your children that they're going to go out of Mitzrayim with these trees. Okay? Tell your children, tell your grandchildren, don't forget these trees. Whenever you're going, whenever you have tzaddis, go to the trees. Remember these trees. I promise you that you're going to go out with these trees. These trees are gonna take you out of Egypt. These trees you're gonna build a temple with these trees. These trees, don't forget these trees. It was especially comforting to know that Yaakov made an incredible effort. And again, that's why the Rebbe holds that this was not saplings. These were trees. Yaakov Avinu schlepped 70, 80, I don't know the amount of trees. So you can imagine the kids. Imagine the 12 Shvatim and their children say, wow, Zayda, we're going down to Egypt, we're schlepping 80 trees. Yeah, we're schlepping these 80 trees. Why don't you cut them into boards? No, we're schlepping the trees because we're planting them there. We're planting them. Why are you planting them? You trust me, these trees are gonna be a comfort for you in the future. You trust me. These trees are gonna remind you of why we're going through this whole thing. These trees are gonna remind you that there's a purpose in this whole journey. So that's why Rashi says the word Rabbi Tanchuma. The Rabbi says, because the Rashi says that was the whole purpose of the trees. Tanchuma. Tanchuma means cancellation. Nechama. Right? In a dark gullus, we need some nechama. We need some consolation. We need we need a light in this darkness.
We need it now.
So this is the light in the darkness. The 210 years of Egypt, Yaakov gave them a light. He gave them something to hold on to. Physical thing to hold on to, a tree. Right? He prophesied to his children that they will build a tabernacle in the desert. He told them, trust me. Look at these trees. You're going to build a Beis Hamikdash. You're going to build something in the desert. Trust me, you're way out of here. You're going to build something. He didn't maybe know exactly what it's going to be. But he said, I'm telling you, this is going to be used for something great. A good question. I wasn't there. He instructed his children, who instructed the following generation to take them along with them when they left Egypt. So one generation told the next generation, listen, my friends, don't forget the trees. Come and see the trees. Come and see the trees. These trees, right? And they reminded them that they're going to get out of here. These trees are going to get them out of here. These trees are not the trees are going to get them out of here. God's going to get them out of here. We're going to build a tabernacle. That's so Rashi. Come on, it's beautiful. So Rashi comes and tells the child of the reason why. Not that the Rashi wants to tell the child that, where do they have the trees? Where do they have these acacia wood to build the Mishkan? Rashi wants to tell the child what's important of these trees. What's so important about these trees? Why was it so important? Why did the Jewish people schlep it with them? Because these trees were important to them. It reminded them where they're heading. It reminded them that Yaakov Avinu and God promised them that they're going to go out of Mitzrayim. It reminded them that there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Evidence that the trees must have dropped seeds over the years. Is there any trees remaining in the area?
I don't know.
But I have an answer to that.
I don't know. Yeah.
So I don't know the answer exactly, but I said, why, what's with the acacia trees? So they said they do very well in an arid environment.
Okay. So Jews, look at the next 7b. What's the matter? Why are you laughing? Oh, the whole Mishkan was made out of this tree. Oh, the ark was acacia. Okay. Jews will behold. So the Rebbe continues on page 7, on 7b, page 89. Jews will behold with their physical eyes the trees that were transported from beyond Egypt, from Israel, which signifies redemption. This underscored for them that even during their time of bondage, they were fully under the Egyptian, and they were not fully under Egyptian thumb. They were under God's authority. Promised, I will bring you up to Israel. I will bring you up. They would be liberated from Egypt, ascend to Israel, and bring these trees with them. And that's the beauty of this Rashi. That's the beauty of the Rashi. That's what Rashi wants to tell the 5-year-old child in these 2 words, Aseh Shitim. In these 2 words, Aseh Shitim. What is the lesson, Tanchuma? What is the consolation to us? What does that have to do with us? We're in Gullus. We continue in Gullus. Sometimes a dark Gullus, a hard Gullus. We also have to have a tree. You said before, we need a tree. Yeah, we watch our tree. What is our trees? It's a good question. What are palm trees? Tzaddik katoma yifrach. He said palm trees. A righteous man will be like a palm tree. So the tzaddik is our tree. The righteous man is our tree. That's our tree. So when Jews, the Rebbe says in text number 8, when Jews are distraught over being in exile, even if they enjoy material and spiritual prosperity, Baruch Hashem, like we live in exile today, because a Jew's genuine desire is to experience the divine presence, this desire is rooted in the core of their spiritual being. We are shaken to the core by the fact that the divine presence is not manifest today as it was in the temple stood in Yerushalayim. Moreover, the following teachings from our sages disturb us greatly. They taught that we must regard the fact that the temple is not rebuilt during our lifetime is as if it's destroyed in our lifetime. So therefore, we're destroyed. We're destroyed. And therefore we know that the Eibush always gives a tzaddik. Rab Chia, the next text, Rab Chia bar Abba, text number 9, the Gemara says, Rab Chia bar Abba said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, a righteous person does not pass away until a similar righteous person is born. At the passage stage, the sun rises, the sun sets. Before the sun sets on Eli, the high priest Shmuel, the prophet of Ramah, was born. Rabbi Chia bar Abba said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, God saw that there would be few perfect righteous people, so he planted them in each generation. As the passage states, as the pasuk states, for the pillar of the earth belongs to God, and he sets the world upon it. So that's the journey, my friend. And we need to remember those tzaddikim that were with us in this generation. What? We have the Rebbe, he's our tree. I'll bring you a tree. I'll bring you a sapling. I'm not sure if I'm going to seed a tree. I'll bring you a seed, okay? I'll bring you a seed for Israel. I'm not Yaakov Avinu. Text number 10, and your teacher shall no longer be concealed from you. Your eyes will see your teacher. Problem is now in exile, we are looking, we are in the dark, so to say, and we are looking for some light. If Rabbi Hillel, text number 11, he brings down the sage, the destruction of the temple did not cause the divine presence to be concealed from perfectly righteous Jews. My teacher, Rabbi Isaac Epstein of Gomel, said in the name of Rabbi Shnei Zalman of Ladi that for lofty souls such as Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, the temple was not destroyed. And therefore we end with the statement of the Rebbe. Seeing the proverbial trees planted by our forefather Jacob in every generation is comforting. These trees are untouched by the spiritual desolation of the exile, yet they are visible to us. Right? Look at this room you're sitting in. Truth is, that's why every Jewish home should have a lot of Jewish books, because those are the trees. These are our trees. These are our trees. These are, yeah, but I mean, these are spiritual trees. These are Eitz Chaim Hi Lamachazikim Ba, right? We say it right over here. Eitz Chaim Hi Lamachazikim Ba. It's a tree of life to those that grab onto it. These are the trees. These are our trees. They yet are visible to us. They empower us to not succumb to the spiritual darkness of exile, but rather to overcome it. And with strength, we merit being fully consoled with an actual, real consolation. After this long final exile, the only possible consolation is a true, complete redemption. The literal arrival of our righteous Redeemer of terra firma. What does that mean? On terra firma?
On the earth. The
Earth.
earth. The earth.
Earth.
Terra. Earth.
Earth.
Earth, Rabbi. Terra firma. The earth.
What do you want from me?
That's okay.
Make
You're
it,
good. You're amazing.
darling.
You're amazing.
You know what? Call the JLI and tell them why you're using these fancy English words. Firm earth. Even on firm earth. Why could they write firm earth? They want to be they want to be fancy. Terra firma. Go to English speedily in our days. So that's the beauty. We have to hold on. Yeah, just like Yaakov Avinu. So in essence, the child, the Rashi tells the child and all of us, we're all like the 5-year-old child, and he tells him that everywhere, even in the exile, the Eivishter, Yaakov Avinu, God, so to say, plants a tree. He gives us something to hold on to, not something spiritual, physical, something to hold on to. A tree, whatever the tree might be, whatever the tree you might have, the book, the Chumash, the Gemara, the Tanya, whatever it might be, grab onto it. Because that will remind you that how dark it is, how the struggle might be. But the future is planted right here. The tree is planted right here. The Mishkan that was built in the desert was planted right here in Mitzrayim. It was already planted right here. Majority, 90% of the Mishkan was hanging around the Mitzrayim for 210 years. These trees were hanging around in Egypt while they went through all the tzaras. These trees were all standing there ready to go out with them out of Mitzrayim. And that's Rabbi Tanchuma. That's our consolation, that we should not give up in the gullus. We should realize that the light is right here. Not far away. The light is right here. Not looking for the light. It's right here. The trees are right here. The light is right here. And Amir Hashem, we'll see the light. But right now, we cannot see the light. But Amir Hashem, the light is right here. And therefore, we have to take, as the expression says, Hine Omed Acha Kasleinu, God, Mashiach is waiting right out the door. We take one more step forward, we'll bring a completion. We'll bring a completion to this whole journey, and we'll take the light that we have, and we'll build another beautiful Beis Hamikdash. Will be another beautiful reality, and that's what the Rashi wants to tell the 5-year-old child. Isn't that amazing?
There's a number 13.
Oh, there's number 13. Is it number 13? Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not going to jip you for number 13. The Alter Rebbe in text number 13, you're right, page 94. Every soul in the world was included in the collective soul of first Adam in general. His soul was divided into 613 elements, representing the 248 organs and the 365 sinews. More specifically, his soul was divided into innumerable sparks.
You should have put with 12.
Now, Jacob's spiritual beauty resembled Abraham's spiritual beauty. This means that like Adam, Jacob's soul is also comprised all Jewish souls. That's what we call Bnei Yisrael, called the children of Israel, Jacob, because we all come from Yaakov Avinu. So even though Avram is Yitzchak, but we call ourselves Bnei, we don't call ourselves Bnei Abraham, we call ourselves Bnei Yisrael, because we all have a spark in us of Yaakov Avinu. Thus, God's infinite light shines openly into the souls of all those who follow Yaakov's example, are upright of heart, engage in Torah study and mitzvah observance, this divine radiance is stronger and most intense in their minds and hearts. I know you like this, Moshe, during prayer. It always comes back to prayer. Always goes back to prayer. My friends, what the Rebbe is telling us, that who brought the trees to Egypt? They didn't come there by themselves. They were brought there by Yaakov Avinu. We have to also plant trees. We have to plant the trees. If there's no trees in your neighborhood, plant a tree. Plant a tree. Plant a vision. Plant a light in your surroundings. Let other people be inspired by your tree. Have a wonderful and beautiful day.
This is a good commercial for JNF, the Jewish National.